we're doing now is basically providing sensors in all these spaces under the lighting apparatus. And what we found was a very simple. It basically, a lot of folks who work in hospitals, they don't maybe shut the door all the time. They don't flip the switch to turn things off. You know, we have now sensors to allocate, send that information to the right people to say, hey, this can be turned off. And this component is drawing, that's 3,000 watts.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. I have Jason Bodlaender with me today. We are going to talk about some interesting topics, and if you're listening and you have had some level of interest in, working with or competing with Asian markets, which a lot of manufacturers do, moving from a distribution model to a direct-to-consumer model, which I've had a lot of those conversations with manufacturers, and then more specific to Xicato, we have a lighting solution that's being incorporated into smart facilities. And there's a lot of really interesting applications for lighting that I never thought of before our conversation originally. So welcome to Manufacturing Insiders, Jason. Excited to have the conversation.
Okay, great. Nate, thank you so much for having me. And it's good to be on here. I'm just a bit jet lagged, but very, very energetic to talk to you today.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, you're flying all over the place, doing all kinds of things.
Oh yeah. With the current market and of course levels of uncertainty, which has got to keep us on our toes, and predictability and forecasting. Of course, it's a bit more difficult now. I would say with the rest of the sales force out there too.
Yeah. So before we jump into some of those challenges, can you just kind of characterize Xicato and what your role and responsibility is there?
Yeah. Okay. So I take care of all the sales basically, and our major accounts, new business, existing business, and current business. What we do is we are a OEM / also a LED chip manufacturer. So we provide the bare bones for any sort of lighting or consumer product that will use an LED chip inside. Where we specialize is our color, our accuracy, our level of efficiency, as well as longevity. Okay. An example would be someone to design or industrial designer to design a downlight or a specific lighting apparatus that would be dialed in for a very specific museum per se, or a huge library that requires a lot of detail in the lighting, because how important that is to the human being that's inside doing what they're supposed to be doing, or showcasing very specific paintings and artwork that requires a fine tune in the color accuracy.
I see. So, how does that play out? So, say you have this fine piece of art, and who makes the specification for this is how the light needs to show this piece of art? How does that conversation go?
Yeah, so that would be one of our specifiers. It could be a lighting design agency. It could be an agency itself that's working directly with a lighting designer that have these prerequisites based off specific standards and compliance as well. So let's just look in North America or in Asia. Asia, there's just different compliance requirements for each country. In North America, it's pretty much standard all around. So the key play here is the lighting designer will have a prerequisite and sort of work with the owner of the space and understand what the owner of space wants. Based off those wants, the lighting designer or the architect or the space design, whoever that person is in that field, will then recommend levels of lighting and how it needs to be portrayed for certain spaces in that building. So I hope that makes a bit of sense there. because
Yeah,
there's
so
so
I
many
mean,
different spaces.
I'm thinking like, so you want a light that is going to accurately show the colors in the in the painting, right?
Yes.
Not have
Mhm.
too much reflection. You're going to want to make sure that there's not UV that's going to damage the painting over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so things like that. Okay.
Yeah, I
Um,
can quickly go over it. And Nate, that's exactly there. For me, that's like normal knowledge there, but I need to explain that. And that's exactly it.
right.
Glare control, color temperature, specific protection that's on certain paintings because they'll use certain protective measures already. And then we want to ensure that we don't, we provide that level of visual acuity.
Right.
So from the person viewing the artwork or viewing the space. So that's where the designer comes in, understanding the space better, and then develops a specification. And then through that specification, they'll go through a couple of manufacturers that can cater to like a high R9. So we have a color rendering index, and then we take a look at the R9, which is the red factor. So
Okay.
that red factor on how well we can render red without bringing sunlight into the space. So we do our best to mimic the sunlight to showcase the red
I see.
as
I
an
see.
example. Yeah.
So to bring this home to a broader swath of the audience, what do you think is the most underutilized or misunderstood aspect of lighting inside of a typical, maybe manufacturing facility?
Underutilized in terms
So, for
of
example, if with art you are looking at it from we wanted to show the true piece of art, right? In a
hmm,
manufacturing facility, there's going to be some safety repercussions to having the right level of lighting. There are probably things that I haven't even thought of. So that's kind of what I was hoping to pull out of you is what are the
ah,
things I haven't thought
okay. There's a multitude of items in there. I think what I'll do is I'll showcase or I'll discuss with you an existing opportunity, not to share too much information. It would be in such a manner when the customer, the client, what that requirement is in terms. Not only is it the expectation of having the best light quality, but it's also to maybe track where a lot of their guests or their visitors go to. And so under what's being underutilized is the opportunity to put in an additional sensor
of. Hmm.
to go ahead and broadcast information. Now, this has been done a long time ago, but we've used RFID to then trigger certain sensors. But then it's about proximity. So nowadays we got better technology, better distance, better accuracy, efficiency, and now we can provide very good data to trigger a sensor or a switch. Because then there's a lot of people. Let's say it's a small room, and it goes over the 20 people, and the temperature starts going up because of how many people are in that room. You
Hmm.
can have a temperature sensor in there, and then a switch to kick on the HVAC system per se, let's call it that, or
Sure.
dim the lights down because we've had the light coming in through the natural aspects of the space through the windows. So you want an even uniformity, and that's what's being underutilized is these simple sensors, which maybe are not discussed. Maybe it's not in the budget, and so the special sort of opportunity we have in front of us, what I'm describing, would be in the hospitality sector. And so these underutilized for the sensors, for management of specific facility requirements to maintain the space. So I can go into such minute depth into that. But if you can envision a facility manager's responsibility,
Hmm.
and so how they would manage that space. Another area too that's underutilized is the efficiency and the drive, because we have to use transformers per se. We call them transformers, we call them drivers. Um, there's so much more we can pack into these drivers that can provide additional data or be an additional component in the wireless solution. or in the wired solution. So there's a lot to be exploited in that space. The future is looking into almost where all this data that we're developing and harvesting from these sensors, it's going to be a software as a service maybe in the future because of all this development into the space. Another interesting opportunity is in the warehouse, in the logistics aspect. For the logistics space of warehousing, if you can think about how does a warehouse operate, you can utilize the same space that an LED downlight or a diode or a specific apparatus can be used to also be a station for a node where it can relay information. We've had that already. If you look at all the other brands out there, they have lamps that can wirelessly communicate to your phone. And then they can also wirelessly communicate with other devices. But what I'm mentioning here is something where it's a utilization of data points so that it can help the worker on the floor or safety procedures.
Right.
So there's a lot there. There's different spaces, and there's a lot depending on the space. I can go into other areas that are being underutilized. So
yeah, and so I mean, I think the warehouse is something that a lot of the audience can probably picture pretty easily, and a lot of them have warehouse space. So on the ground, what is the problem that we're solving with some of this IoT, Internet of Things technology inside of your lighting? This combination, does it replace existing technology? Does it do something completely new and revolutionary? Like, how is it actually used, and what problem is it solving?
I'm going to use the healthcare side here. So we have a couple of hospital projects that we've completed, one in particular, and with the warehouse knowledge and what I just mentioned in such a very small, condensed time, is the capability now to provide very, very important data sets that reduces the whole building's consumption of energy.
Okay.
So based on the question, we have a lot of information to help us develop very specialized dashboards with the technology. Sorry, excuse me. I apologize here. Sorry about that, Nate. I just shut the phone off. Okay, so where were we?
The hospital application, saving energy.
So what we're doing now is basically providing sensors in all these spaces under the lighting apparatus, and we're utilizing the same space as well. So that means the same sort of space that was utilized for lighting, for the installation lighting, we're utilizing that space to exploit a lot of very specific areas where it provides engineers, nurses, doctors, very specific location asset tracking for very specific components in the hospital, such as a critical asset life-saving asset, right? So you would need to know where that product is to go ahead and do the task at hand, or track where a patient is going at that same moment, or for the hour, or for the 2 hours. So the key concept is ready information, ready to go. Now, all this information that I'm talking about, we're harvesting data, and the hospital understands all that data. And where does that go to? It also goes to what's being underutilized. Do we need these products? Why is this taking such a long time to get into the right ER room? So they've got a lot of prompting that they're doing to figure out from all this data, what is the main point? And what we found was a very simple, basically, a lot of folks who work in the hospitals, they don't maybe shut the door all the time. They don't flip the switch to turn things off. We have now sensors to send that information to the right people to say, hey, this can be turned off. And this component is drawing, that's 3,000 watts. and someone has left that on,
Right,
and they
right.
haven't realized. And so what we found is by understanding these sort of patterns, we can just share, and the hospital knows it now, is that can reduce their energy consumption by 80%. Now, I'm only saying I'm saying that based on a very special case.
Right.
So don't take that 80% and sure to the whole world there. It's a very specialized case. And on average, I could probably always push 30%
Wow.
reduction.
Which is, I
Yeah.
mean, that's significant in the case of a lot of companies.
Oh yeah, it is,
So
especially
what's
hospitality.
what is the actual, the sensors that this light, so for example, in the case of asset tracking, like knowing where this
Mhm.
piece of equipment is at any given point in time. What's the actual mechanism? Is there some sort of an RFID on the device and then that communicates with the chip and the lights, or is there some sort of video? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it works with it's like Zigbee, the low frequency of Bluetooth. And excuse me for all the folks that are listening, and you may know more about Bluetooth. We're using our own protocol within the Bluetooth capability that we've licensed, and basically install that into our sensors. Um, this sort of Bluetooth mesh that we create basically lines up exactly to our software that we developed to manage all these nodes and sensors. So basically, it's a Bluetooth device that's receiving information. So we can have we call it XID, Intelligent Device Module, or XIM. And under the LED component on the PCB, there's maybe a sub-level that has a Bluetooth device that is then connected to another node, which is another receiver within the same floor, within the level. And then that's communicating with a gateway. All right. And a gateway could be a simple Raspberry Pi that's been developed and created as a gateway to send information to the integrated system for the building, or send it to the cloud.
Okay.
There are other ways to sort that out, but the key thing is how do they communicate is through proximity and Bluetooth.
Okay.
One very particular aspect is to increase the duty cycle of the amount of times that the device is talking to the sensors, or the sensors receiving the information, for the accuracy. So the higher the frequency, you'll get better accuracy on location. So you change that talk time, if you want to say, use the quotes there, talk time.
Yeah.
But there's a technical term to that. And so we can do that. That's what makes us really interesting, is that we can customize to that for specific products, or for the specific floor in the ER room, to have the defibrillator machine frequency to be the highest frequency possible, so that we can track it faster, right?
I see.
Have a better. Do you understand? The higher the frequency of the talk time, we'll know the movement of where it's at as much as possible.
Okay. But
Um,
essentially, you have a piece of hardware on this asset that
yeah.
communicates with the sensor in the light.
Yes, exactly. It's like a wristband. It could be I've got a wristband here, and it could be the size of a dime, smaller than a quarter.
Yep.
Quarter is probably average size in the industry right now. It could be on a tag that you'll get at an event. They could track you on where you go from there.
So
That's that device.
all your employees could have a wristband, and you could be like, "Why do you spend so much time in the shitter, man?"
Yeah, hey, that's exactly it. You know, Nate, it's so interesting. I was in Singapore, and I was at a meeting, and there was an individual that had a vest on, and this vest was connected to some device to show his vital signs. It was a very interesting thing.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what company he worked for. I
He
just
was a
stopped him
very
and said, "Hey,
valuable
what is that?"
asset in the company. Like, we got to keep
Yeah,
this guy alive.
yeah.
That's funny. So,
So
very interesting stuff. And like, I mean, I don't know that a lot of people realize that your lighting can integrate technology that could allow you to track assets, to track employee productivity, to to track energy consumption, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's very fascinating stuff.
Hmm.
I want to jump to the topic of something that's very, very relevant today. With all the tariffs and with all of companies kind of moving production out of China to other markets. You have a ton of experience in these Asian markets. So what are some of the challenges that you guys have been experiencing, having, sourcing product from all these countries and also doing business in these countries? What are some of the challenges you're having?
Well, the number one challenge is Asia right now seems to be leading the way in terms of from prototyping to consumer product ready to go. I mean,
Right.
with all our 3D manufacturing now, the way they can get it. And when I mean there's pockets of countries like China, Vietnam, Thailand, uh, South Korea, and there are certain countries that are utilized for the specific streamlining process of manufacturing from a prototyping product all the way into a finished good. Like in Thailand, we have a lot of Japanese manufacturing companies down there that are doing that not only for LED lighting, computer hardware, hard drives. There's a massive amount of production being done out there. Now that may have changed recently, but one of the things is price as well, as it cheaper for our Asian competitors to get ready, have a lower price, have all the support in the location. I've got to find allies. I need distribution folks. I need system integrators, electrical wholesalers to support my path. So there's a lot there. So it's pricing and the technical support. Well, with that, we got Zoom, we have everything. There's a major difference. We have to fly people out from LA. So our headquarters is in LA, and we do have technical support in Hong Kong. It's not enough, as you'll need a team to do all that. So pricing and support. And you mentioned about raw material components, the sourcing of that. We have gone through quite a bit, and we've just come out of that situation where our lead times are pretty competitive now. That's around 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, which is not bad. And so what we've done is we have production out of the Philippines. Okay. So we still have some basic operations out of China, and it's still going as is at the moment. Most of our manufacturing that we're doing once components come in is out of LA as well. So we have products that are ready, and so it's the raw material side has been managed pretty well. That was one difficulty, I'd say, since COVID till now. It'd been a big major difficulty as production having a hard time maintaining a stable rate. So versus just buying at spot, because then that increases. It's just a domino effect, and they'll put our prices up. And then once our prices go up based on these particular roadblocks, we have our competitors in Asia who don't need to worry about that, as they're very well embedded through their network and connection, that they don't have to do too much to maintain a stabilized pricing matrix for raw material acquisition, basically.
Right. So have you, you said you still have some production or quite a bit of production in China. Have you, over the past couple of years, aggressively kind of gone into some of those other markets like Philippines, Taiwan, whatever it might be, and sort of found a reasonable replacement for the production that was happening in China?
Not really. I would say we've found that We moved some of our products to be produced in the Philippines, and that move really helped out. I believe, and from what I'm seeing now, is that how it's helped us out is the level of communication and with our folks in the Philippines. And so the folks in the Philippines are handling our more complex products, and
Hmm.
those are the ones that are selling faster. So
Right.
versus our normal LED chips, which are just producing luminescence, basically light, we have the more complex items. They're not only producing light, but also a little module in there for the wireless capabilities and the communication devices with sensors and all that. So one, it's helped with that by moving the Philippines. In China, we have more of a contractual agreement where they're working within a specific frame of parameters. And over time, there would be more of a development of trust, right? To maintain the raw material composition on the right parts to be produced and not to draw down on certain materials without mentioning it or telling us, which is something that we'll run into sometimes. It could be based on a couple of procedures or a couple of problems that may arise because they had a hard time sourcing for certain materials, but they had to go through it because the pressure's on to go ahead and deliver. So there's those components. It's the Q and A. The Q and A is much. Sorry, the quality assurance is much better in the Philippines.
I see.
At the moment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really, and I haven't really thought of the Philippines as, a big manufacturing market. You don't really hear it talked about that much. Has that been
Yeah.
sort of a recent development that they've been really standing up their manufacturing sector?
Not really. I think from my time with Xicato, they had only been dealing with a small amount of our SKUs, and so during the process and over the time, they're starting to take on more of our product lines in the Philippine production plant. So we see that really, really helpful in that because of that communication, I believe,
So they're
which
pretty
I
good.
experienced. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, no, that's fine. What I was just going to mention was that versus where we communicate with our OEM folks in China, it's more of the simpler products that we still are pushing through. And
In
I
China.
believe we don't want to, yeah, with China. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe we don't want to mess with that because it's working fine right now. But don't get me wrong, we've all seen a price uptake in all the areas there. So our
Yeah.
prices have gone up as well.
So, so there's still some pretty hefty tariffs with China. Yes.
There are, but I want to say but because there's the uncertainty with the freight forwarders that are out there supporting our movements of our goods. They know what's happening. They can make predictions at least 3 to 6 months ahead. It's having a good freight forwarder that will find ways to maneuver out of the tariff positioning.
Okay.
So for
Okay.
most of
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, here's a quick turnaround here, Nate. I will just directly send if it's a large order. I will basically drop ship from the manufacturing plant. And if I drop ship from the Philippines to France, let's say, or Philippines to Singapore or Thailand, I'm out of the tariff zone. But when we're bringing it into our warehouse and then our forward on manufacturing part of it, it's two sectors that I'll go into. That's where those tariffs hit, and so those orders coming
Hmm.
from North America, that's where we'll see that. So
Interesting.
that they'll get hit on the tariffs there, and that
Oh,
will either come. Most of our pricing has gone up to maintain that process to have it available in our warehouse. So we take the hit. or we can actually try and we'll quote out and say this is the cost at this point in time. But I much prefer that the companies we work with have their freight forwarding department doing the further onward search to find the best way to bring it into their warehouse or to their plant to do more, go down the production line.
I see. Okay. Yeah, and this is, I think this is a really valuable point, and I almost don't even know what questions to ask about it because, we talk about navigating tariffs and different strategies to do that, but I hadn't really heard too much about sort of the drop shipping situation and the freight forwarder kind of carrying the load in finding almost like your lawyer finds a way to get around your, whatever legal issues.
Well, that's
Yeah.
it. I'll add on to that, Nate, is one major aspect to win in the manufacturing sort of space is if you have a great freight forwarder, they will understand the areas to navigate to reduce the level of stress through whatever positioning you put yourself into, such as high value goods being air freighted or by ship. So a good freight forwarder will give you options. And then not only that, they're going to share with you what other tactics to use, such as your bog downs, your number one bestseller. You should be shipping it once the first of the month or the mid of the month, and a second shipment at the end. Your customized solutions should be once a month. So they'll come in every 30 days or something, so that the sales team understands the progression that's coming in for components into the warehouse to be then built in to the solution that's been sold to the client, basically. Shipping was, for me, I would push DHL, FedEx, TNT to give me a matrix. I'd like to see the matrix for every 6 months, every quarter. And this helped because then we would just share this information with our procurement department of our clients. So they would see the freight forwarding pricing that we are being offered.
Yep.
And they would say, okay, Jason, would like to take that price because our freight forwarder is not doing it exactly to this, or this is a better price. So that was one very interesting way to sort things out, especially when you have small devices, small products, because you don't just ship it that size. You got to build it a bit bigger so it doesn't get lost in the whole transshipment of things.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I think that's valuable advice. So I wanted to just touch real quick on you're really passionate about AI and about incorporating technology into business. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit about kind of the side venture that you have going on with AI. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. And before I go in, I listened to your last podcast. You had an individual, forget what the first name may have been Edward.
Edward Dodd. Yeah, Ed Dodd. Yep. Procurement.
Yeah. Yes. And he tapped onto a very important gap that needs to be addressed. And I hope he does very well. I hope he gets the support because that's exactly where the side venture that I'm going into, there's a lot of requests. C-level folks, the executive officers, COOs, CFOs, these are great areas that they're seeing that where they can reduce the workload of their human worker, let's call it, that's in the admin side of things or in marketing or in assembly. It's that they want to move the human workers into more of a complex task and then have the AI digital assistant to take on specific roles to quickly associate and then send. So use a algorithm that they'll tell us to work, such as if this is an email from a national account, this needs to go to this email box, and then we'll have something developed that will take that email and maybe crank out a quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on right now as a side venture that will come to support Xicato, because there's so much data that's being harvested, and there's a lot around it. What I mean by that, and it's a positive connotation, is There are, of course, privacy issues, but that's something that's worked out between the adaptive edge of AI, okay, and the customer, which is the manufacturing company, to develop a very simple procedure on how that's done. Because number one, our customers who want to go into the space want to protect the privacy of their clients.
Right.
So the best way to do that is to do everything outside of the cloud.
Right.
So it's basically an agreement that they have a desktop or computer sitting in their admin office, which does it all instead of putting everything to the cloud. That's one way to protect all the privacy issues. And
Yep.
so the side venture helps into the machine learning aspect, because we're going to be developing so much in the space where they'll need to understand how this data is going to be used.
Hmm.
And the first part of it is so easy. It's look at all the standards we have, UL listing, CE, all those very simple compliance aspects can be uploaded into AI to help out new product designs and make sure that they are falling under the compliance form factor, whatever it may be. There's a lot there. And then
Yeah.
in the sales side is basically a universal program that can take an email, look at the AutoCAD design, a
Yep.
lighting design, and maybe
Yep.
not even that, just look at a blueprint
Right.
and then know what to quote and pull off from the company's database of SKUs and understand those categories or family of products. How do they fit into a specific space?
Right.
So,
And that
yeah,
would, I mean, that would be a huge amount of work lifted off of the shoulders of that quoting manager and the company. And you could really apply this
big amount.
philosophy to most businesses, whether a machine shop or,
Hmm.
whatever type of manufacturing you are. If you have a database of quotes that you provided, you specify to the AI model, here are the things that I look at when I quote a job, how big is the part, how much does it weigh, how many features am I milling, how many features am I drilling, that sort of stuff. And then you say, okay, here's the past 50 quotes that I've given, here's the price point, here's the next quote, here's the file, quote it. And it may not be perfect, but it's going to be pretty damn close.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like there's a couple opportunities. I'll bring up one company, a steel manufacturer.
Okay.
And so they provide specific extrusions. And
Yep.
so if you can imagine, you have a couple industrial designers, or let's say me and you got together and say, hey, we want to build something. Here are the specs. And specs can come in maybe like 5 or 6 different forms. And that, you know what, it could be a scan of a sketch of a an object of a certain length and dimension and width. So we're working with all the parameters on that. And so it's quite a bit to take in, but once you have that understanding, it's a very detailed onboarding checklist, which is what I've been helping to develop and work with it. But
Which
once
is
you
the
get it
most
right,
important. That's the most important thing, because there's a lot of people out there that want to solve these problems with AI.
mhm,
There's not a lot of them that are good at understanding where the problems are. And, because once you figure that out, then it's, I'm not going to say easy, but it's manageable to use AI to solve those problems. But finding out what the problems are is the hard part. So that checklist is great.
yeah, and so one very interesting part is, I mean, I learned this 6 months ago with developing specific AI digital assistants that are focused in very key concepts. If you can imagine how your computer works, you want to optimize your hard drive so you can access the data faster, so it propagates onto your screen faster, so you're not being slowed down. Almost the same concept, but in different sectors of the journey to provide the quote. So you see the RFQ coming in, and then the admin agent goes, it's an RFQ. What are the key words on there that's going to categorize it to where it's going to go? Then further categorization, then filtering it and sorting. And
Right.
then by the time it gets to the, okay, we got a good bid on it. Let's now get the assistant, that's the assistant who's in warehousing, to come in and this is what we have in stock. So let's get everything we have in stock to then fulfill the spaces that have been developed by the admin assistant, or it could be the QA, the quantity surveyor, sorry, QS, right? So there could be the digital assistant, then the QS assistant, then the warehouse assistant. And these three agents are all working together. And then the more focus that they're in the certain sectors, the higher accuracy of what you want before it goes out to the customer. Wow, it's pretty amazing.
It is.
So, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
and we could honestly talk about that for an entire other hour. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our time, but we definitely should have some follow-up conversations. Love to chat with you some more, and possibly even have another podcast at some point in the future. We talk a little bit more about that aspect of things. But yeah, you're a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate the tips you gave on kind of the navigating tariffs issue. And if somebody wants to reach out to you, we'll put your contact information into the YouTube video description, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time today, and enjoyed talking to you. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. So
absolutely.